Nobody in the hallway of Ridgemont High saw it coming. That was the thing about Tyler Marsh. He had a gift for choosing his moments. He knew exactly when a teacher turned her back, when a security guard rounded a corner, when the camera angle shifted just enough to leave a blind spot. He had been doing this for 3 years, since the 9th grade, and he had never once been caught. Not officially, not in any way that left a mark on his record. The principal knew his name, the way you know a rumor, with suspicion, but without proof. Tyler Marsh was careful in the way that only truly cruel people learn to be careful. Because cruelty practiced long enough becomes its own kind of intelligence. The new girl had been at Ridgemont for exactly 4 days. Her name was Mara Calloway. She had transferred from somewhere out west, Portland. People said, though nobody had actually asked her. She was 17, and she was quiet in the way that some people are quiet not because they have nothing to say, but because they have decided that most conversations are not worth the effort. She had dark eyes that observed everything without commenting on it, and she wore the same kind of clothes every day. Plain, functional, dark. She ate lunch alone the first 3 days, not with the hunched posture of someone who wanted company and didn't know how to get it, but with the settled stillness of someone who had chosen this table, this corner, this particular quality of silence, and was fine with it. Tyler noticed her because she didn't notice him. That was the thing that got his attention. He was used to being noticed. He was used to the small flinches, the averted eyes, the quick changes in body language that rippled through the hallway when he appeared. 3 years of deliberate intimidation had built him a particular kind of reputation, and reputation, he had found, was its own force. It did work even when he wasn't in the room. But Mara Calloway looked through him the first time their eyes met in the hallway. The way you look through a window you have no interest in opening. He decided to introduce himself properly. It was a Wednesday. 3rd period had just let out, and the hallway outside room 214 was the particular chaos of 400 teenagers moving in all directions, at once, lockers slamming, sneakers squeaking on linoleum, voices layered over voices until the whole thing became a kind of roar. Mrs. Patterson's classroom door was open, and Mrs. Patterson herself was 2 steps into the hallway, talking to another teacher about something involving the copy machine on the 2nd floor. She had one hand on the doorframe. She would be back in 2 minutes, maybe less. Tyler watched Mara at her locker. She was loading books into her backpack with calm, methodical movements, not looking around, not checking to see who was watching. Her dark hair fell forward over one shoulder. There were maybe 8 other students in the immediate area, but Tyler had learned long ago that most bystanders were not actually present in any meaningful sense. They were bodies with eyes pointed in a direction, and their attention was everywhere except where it mattered. He walked up behind her and slammed her locker shut with the flat of his hand, hard enough that the metal rang out and 3 people nearby startled. Mara's backpack strap was still caught in the door. She turned around slowly, not quickly, slowly, like someone who had decided in advance how fast they were going to turn around and was not going to be hurried. She looked at him, just looked. Tyler smiled. He was taller than her by 5 inches, and he had the broad shoulders of someone who had played football since middle school. And he used that physical fact the way he used everything, as a tool. He leaned one arm against the locker above her head. This was a practiced move. It made people feel surrounded without actually touching them, which was important for maintaining deniability. "You're in my spot," he said. Mara blinked once. "No," she said, "I'm not." Her voice was calm in a way that was different from the forced calm of someone trying not to show fear. It was calm the way still water is calm, not because nothing is happening beneath it, but because whatever is happening beneath it has made its peace with the surface. "You sure about that?" Tyler said. "Your name isn't on it," she said. She glanced up at the locker number, 247, and then back at him. "And neither is mine, actually. This is Marcus Webb's locker. Mine is 249. You closed the wrong one." She reached past him without asking permission and opened locker 247, retrieved her backpack strap, moved one locker to the right, opened 249, finished what she had been doing. All of this with the focused efficiency of someone completing a task. Tyler felt the ground shift slightly beneath him. He was not used to this. He was used to fear, to placation, to nervous laughter, to the desperate friendliness of people who hoped that if they were likable, enough he would leave them alone. He was not used to being treated as an inconvenience. He felt something tighten in his chest. Not quite anger yet, but the thing that comes just before anger, when the world fails to respond the way it should. He grabbed her backpack, strap, and yanked it hard enough that she stumbled back a step toward him. The hallway noise did not stop. 400 teenagers kept moving, but the 8 people in the immediate area went very still, in the way that people go still when they are watching something happen that they don't know how to interrupt. Mara caught her balance. She looked down at his hand on her strap. She looked up at his face. "Let go," she said. "Or what?" Tyler said. What happened next took approximately 4 seconds. Mara dropped her weight slightly, shifted her hip, and executed a hip throw that took Tyler Marsh, who was 5 inches taller and 60 pounds, heavier, completely off his feet. He went over her center of gravity like a bag of cement, and the floor of Ridgemont High's hallway came up to meet him faster than his nervous system had time to process. He hit the linoleum on his back with a sound that was not loud, but that everyone within 20 feet felt in their bones. She controlled his descent just enough that his head didn't crack against the floor, because she had been trained since the age of 10 to win without causing permanent injury, and that training ran deeper than any decision she could consciously make in the moment. He was flat on his back, looking up at the hallway ceiling, and she was standing beside him, and she had not let go of his wrist, and his arm was at an angle. That was not painful yet, but that contained the very clear promise of pain if he tried to move. The hallway had gone completely silent. Tyler Marsh stared at the fluorescent lights above him and could not immediately locate his understanding of the world. He had never been on the floor before. He had never been the person looking up. He tried to sit up and felt the pressure on his wrist increase just enough to communicate a message, which was not yet. "I trained with the U.S. judo team for 4 years, Mara said, in the same conversational tone she might have used to tell him her locker number. "I competed nationally. I stopped competing because I moved schools too many times." She paused. "You can get up when you're ready to walk away." Tyler said nothing. He was trying to locate his dignity and finding that it had left the building. She released his wrist. He sat up slowly. His back hurt in a way that would become spectacular by tomorrow morning. Around him, the 8 bystanders who had gone still were still, but their faces had changed. The careful blankness had been replaced by something else, something that in some of them was the visible beginning of a feeling they had been suppressing for 3 years. Marcus Webb, whose locker Tyler had accidentally closed, had his phone out and had been filming for the last 45 seconds. Tyler got to his feet. His face was a particular shade of red. He looked at Mara, and she looked back at him with the same expression she had worn the whole time. Not triumphant, not afraid, not performing anything for anyone, just present. "Touch me or anyone else in this school again," she said quietly, "and next time I won't be as careful about the landing." She shouldered her backpack and walked toward her next class. Mrs. Patterson came back through the hallway 30 seconds later, coffee in hand, saying something over her shoulder to the other teacher. She looked at the cluster of students. She looked at Tyler Marsh, standing by the lockers with an expression she had never seen on his face before. She looked at the linoleum floor, which was unremarkable. "What are you all standing around for?" she said. "Get to class." They went to class. By lunch, Marcus Webb's video had been seen by every student at Ridgemont High and was moving outward through text chains and group chats with the unstoppable velocity of something that people had been waiting to see for a very long time. By the time school ended, it had been seen by parents and older siblings and people in 3 neighboring towns. The comments were not kind to Tyler Marsh, not one of them. Tyler did not come to school on Thursday or Friday. Mara ate lunch alone on Thursday, as she had every other day, at her chosen table in the corner of the cafeteria. At 12:15, a girl named Devon set a tray down across from her and said, "Is anyone sitting here?" And Mara said no. At 12:17, 2 more people sat down. By the end of lunch, there were 7 people at her table, and the conversation had expanded to cover homework and weekend plans and a movie that had just come out. The ordinary, comfortable noise of people who have decided, collectively, that something has changed. On Friday, a boy named Caleb, who had been one of the 8 bystanders in the hallway, stopped at Mara's locker before first period. He was thin and careful looking, with the particular posture of someone who had spent years trying to take up as little space as possible. He stood there for a moment without speaking, and then he said, "He broke my phone last year. Just walked by and knocked it out of my hand and stepped on it and kept walking." He stopped. Nobody did anything. Mara looked at him. "I know," she said. "I just wanted to say thank you," Caleb said. "I don't know if that's weird." "It's not weird," she said. He nodded and started to walk away and then turned back. "How long did it take you to learn that?" Mara thought about being 10 years old and walking into a gym that smelled like rubber, mats and chalk, her father's hand on her shoulder. The coach who had told her on the first day that judo was not about being the strongest person in the room. It was about using what was already there, the opponent's weight, their momentum, their certainty, and redirecting it. It was about understanding that force applied in the wrong direction was not strength. It was just noise. 7 years, she said. Caleb nodded slowly, as if filing this information somewhere important. Then he went to class. Tyler Marsh came back to school the following Monday. He walked through the hallways differently. Not smaller exactly. He was still tall, still broad, still physically the same person. But the particular quality of his presence had changed. The way a word changes when you learn what it actually means. He passed Mara in the hallway between second and third period and kept his eyes forward and his hands in his pockets and his mouth closed, and she let him pass without comment, because she had never been interested in humiliation, only in stopping something that needed to stop. He did not bother anyone that day, or the day after, whether that would hold, whether the change was genuine or merely strategic, whether Tyler Marsh would spend the rest of his life renegotiating his relationship with other people's fear. None of that was knowable yet. People were not simple problems with clean solutions. They were long and complicated and capable of surprising you in either direction. But the hallway outside room 214 was quieter now. The kind of quiet that isn't absence but presence. The presence of people who had stopped bracing themselves. Caleb walked to his locker without checking who was behind him. And Mara Calloway, 4 days into Ridgemont High, ate lunch at a table with 7 people who had found their way there one by one, as if following a sound they hadn't heard before but somehow recognized. The sound of a room where the thing that used to be true had simply, finally, stopped being true.